You know, you're the first person I ever shown this place to.
And why am I so special?
Because soon we'll be Christopher and Mary Robin. We should be close now.
We're not going to find them.
We will. Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, we were friends for many years, and they're out there.
Christopher, we need to leave. Now.
I really need to find out what's happening there, okay?
This place is kind of cold. And did you say it has a pool? We need to go. There's... Laura's dead. There's someone else outside. What was that?
We used to be friends. Why are you doing this, please? I would have never left, I swear, I swear.
Hello everybody and welcome to the entertainment headquarters and welcome to a double review. And the films I'm about to look at are two mostly independent. I would say the first one's definitely low budget. The second one I would say is medium budget and has garnered a whole lot of praise and like a cult following. So let's talk about these movies. Let's talk about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That's right. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. The independent Winnie the Pooh horror film, basically when the rights of the Winnie the Pooh character came out into the public domain after being, owned for quite some time by Disney. Independent, filmmakers rushed to get their hands on the rights so they could transform this property into something new and unique. Little did we think we were going to get quite, the graphic and, really, strong horror films that we've garnered from this property. So let's get into the first of the Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey films. So, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is a 2023 British independent slasher film produced, directed, written and edited by Rhys Frake-Waterfield. The first installment of the Twisted Childhood universe is a horror parody of A.A. Milne and A.H. Shepard's Winnie the Pooh books and stars Craig David Dorset as the titular character and Chris Caudle as Piglet, with Amber Thorne, Nikolai Leon, Maria Taylor, Natasha Rose Mills and Danielle Rowland in supporting roles. It follows Pooh and Piglet, who have been feral murderers, as they terrorize a group of young university women and Christopher Robin when he returned to the 100 Acre Wood 5 years after leaving for college. So the film, like I said, is low budget. It is independent. So don't go into this expecting, Halloween editing and Halloween of Michael Myers or, Freddy Krueger style cinematography. It definitely is a homage to classic slasher films. And it has that British home, feel and twist to it. So this film basically starts off with this amazing animated prologue, which I think was well created, which showcases basically the story of Christopher Robin, who befriends these animal human type hybrids. And, you know, he's a childhood friend of these beloved little creatures. But then suddenly, as he gets older, he has to leave to go to college. Obviously, throughout their childhood and his childhood with these creatures, he's basically been feeding them, befriending them, you know, making them feel loved and warm and welcomed. And after he goes to college, they are left on their own devices, and things take a very serious and, you know, cruel, wicked turn. They basically become starved. They slowly begin to lose their minds, and suddenly they turn feral and murderous. And the first victim is none other than Eo, because the rest of the friendly animals end up having to cannibalize him to stay alive. And they feel abandoned. They feel, you know, like they've been just, you know, left alone, and all the love and tender care they once had has now disappeared, and they're now full of murderous rage. And then Christopher Robin returns after 5 years of being at college with his girlfriend. He goes with good intentions to introduce his girlfriend to, of course, the creatures of the 100-Acre Wood, not knowing that in the past 5 years they've grew to become these murderous, evil creatures. And you've only got Piglet and Pooh in this film. As you've seen in the prologue, they show you Rabbit, they show you Owl, and I think Tigger, but they don't show up in this version of this film. So the first 10-15 minutes after the prologue, you then introduce to Christopher Robin and his girlfriend, who meet a very gruesome end at the hands of Pooh. Christopher Robin is then basically, you know, abducted and is chained up and gets, throughout the course of the movie, just brutally tortured and mentally, you know, physically drained, you know, not knowing what the hell has happened in the past 5 years since, you know, he was there with these beloved creatures who are now these murderous, you know, wild, feral, animal-like, you know, beings. And it then changes course to a female character, who basically, she has been through a traumatic experience. She was stalked by some crazy weirdo guy, and basically she, you know, I think her name's Maria. So Maria, basically, after the experience of facing this stalker, her and her college girlfriend decided to hire a, you know, cottage in the middle of the 100-Acre Woods to get away from city life, to get away from the traumatic experience, and attempt to basically just relax and have a good time. And then, of course, things don't, you know, work out that way, because suddenly we're introduced once again to Mr. Pooh, Mr. Winnie the Pooh, who basically decides to stalk alongside Piglet every one of the females in this, you know, this cottage luxury getaway, and they basically take them down one by one in murderous and torturous and grotesque, gory ways. And that pretty much is your plot of these women trying to get away from Piglet and Pooh. Christopher Robin trying to break free from his chains to get away from it and to find some sort of way to communicate with Pooh and try to get through with him. And it's a stereotypical over-the-top independent slasher film with some quite gory kills. The, you know, the setting in the British countryside I really enjoy. But like you say, it is low budget. It feels low budget, and you have to go into this knowing that. I don't judge it on the bigger, more stylized horror films. And because I did go in to this with them kind of expectations of knowing that this wasn't going to be a big flashy horror film like Halloween Kills or Halloween 2018 or Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street. I kind of pretty much got what I wanted out of it. I just wanted some decent kills and decent gore. You know, the acting in this, it's some of it's pretty good and some of it is kind of, you know, independent, you know, acting that you can imagine from these kind of films, not Oscar worthy acting. You get what's written on the tin. You know, the females, you know, group of actors and the characters, they all, you know, seem like a, you know, a close-knit group of girls and friends. And, you know, there's some brutal deaths with them. The one in the pool, there's a one where Piglet's got his sledgehammer and he's basically just taken out, you know, one of these girls as girlfriends, and then he basically chases after a partner who jumps into the fucking swimming pool and basically chases after her, and basically he has his sledgehammer, goes into the water, walks towards her, and just basically knocks her head clean off her shoulders, and it's brutal. And I appreciated that. I appreciated how, knowing that this was a low budget independent film, I appreciate that the director really focused on delivering what he knew mattered, which was the intenseness and the scariness and the gore. And if you do look at the likes of Pooh, like in this particular film, he ain't that scary. He's not scary. He just looks like, you know, a murderer walking around in a Winnie the Pooh mask. There was certain scenes with Pooh that I thought were quite, you know, interesting, unique. There's a scene where, you know, where you've got Christopher Robin chained up and he's trying to communicate with Pooh. He's trying to remind Pooh of the past, of when he was younger, when he was a child, when they were childhood friends, and how he used to, you know, befriend him, and they were, you know, in a, you know, a friendly place. In Winnie the Pooh, he's kind of staring into the mirror, and then you see like a flashback of Christopher Robin as a young kid, and in like images of him being friendly and smiley with these characters, and he suddenly has like tears in his eye, but the tears that are drawn down his face look like it's made of honey. And there's another scene later on where you actually see him, he's feeding on honey, and it's like all just slavering down his mouth. And it makes me feel like when you see the honey dripping out of his eyes, which are meant to be tears, it's quite a unique effect. And I thought it really, you know, it was both disturbing and creepy, but also unique and different. And I really kind of appreciated like the attention to detail of things like that in this independent film. The story, like I say, it's your basic slasher film where, you know, these girls and Christopher Robin are trying to get away from these maniac, you know, woodland human creature hybrids. And the finale, where Pooh is basically taking off these guys that work at the gas station who have rescued the surviving, you know, girls, and they're trying to beat the shit out of Pooh, and then he suddenly goes rampant and just rips the shit out of them, was a fun final of quite an interesting movie. The negatives of this movie, of course, are the fact that it is independent. It doesn't have the stylized or the big budget feel, but the writer, director, and editor who's put this together has done everything he possibly could to make an interesting film. And the fact that he had animation at the beginning of the movie, like the prologue, I thought a nice touch and really gives it that kind of that proper feel of, you know, he's taken this, despite it being independent, despite it being low budget, he's taking it seriously. And he's trying to, despite the budget or the, you know, the budgetary restraints of his film, he's attempting to create something that gravitates or interests people that's different to what we've had in the world of horror. And as you know, since Winnie the Pooh, it's becoming to the, public domain, we've had other characters like Popeye is now in the public domain, and there's been a horror version of Popeye. I think Steamboat Willie, which was the first, I believe, incarnation of Mickey the Mouse, that has now become a horror film. So it's become a trend to create well-known fictional characters that we know have become beloved childhood memories for many into these, sick and sadistic horror versions of these characters. And Blood and Honey is the first attempt to do that. And for its first attempt, I think he did whatever he could. But the negatives are obviously the look of Pooh and Piglet. For me, he's focused a lot on the animation at the beginning. He's focused on great gory kills. The story's a basic slasher story, but he really could have focused more on stylizing the look of the main characters, because that's who we've come to see. We've come to see a really badass, psychotic serial killer, Winnie the Pooh, and we didn't quite get it. And it's an okay plot, like I say. But that's me positives and negatives. If I were to rate Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, the first movie, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, right in the middle. Like I say, first attempt at doing something like this. And he worked within the confines of his budget. He did well with the story, with the gore, with the kills, the acting, and the actors did okay. They did, the very best of their ability. As for Pooh and Piglet, like I say, they could have looked better and did better, but we got what we got with them. But I appreciate the effort and I appreciate his attempt to do something different to what we've had. So 5 out of 10 for Blood and Honey. But as you know, this film did really well. It did better than I think even the director expected. And once he seen that there was a craving for these movies with these, childhood characters, I think a light bulb went off in his head and he went, you know what, I'm going to create something even darker, and I'm going to take this idea and I'm going to run with it and turn it into something unique that we haven't had before in horror. So that's where the start of the Twisted Childhood universe began. And for him to start it off with a bang, he had to do a sequel to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. But what he also had to do, he had to, really deep dive and, change things around and really take it more serious than the first film. So that's why we got Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2.
Let's begin. I'm going to take you back. Feel all weight drift away. How are you feeling?
Good, I think.
Do you recall anything from the session? Focus. What is happening?
This was the day Billy was taken.
Them kids. They didn't stay buried. It's as if the earth itself was allowing this horror to rise up.
There's some unsettling similarities to the 100 Acre Massacre.
It's not safe. There have been loads of murders leading to Ashdown.
Tell me everything you saw, please.
I knew that this day would come.
All of Ashdown will burn.
So there you have it, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. So this film for me is really the start of the twisted childhood universe. The characters that you introduced in this are just unbelievable, especially Tigger. Everything about this, the budget's bigger, the set designs are bigger, the costume and the effects are bigger. This feels a lot more serious and feels like the director, after the success of the first one, like I was saying before, it was like a light bulb went off and you went, I could turn this into something special. So not only is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey a sequel to the first one, it's also in many ways its own soft reboot of the story to basically help tell the tales that are going to lead this twisted childhood universe into a positive and gorier direction into the future. So let's talk about it. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 is a 2024 British independent slasher film serving as the second installment of the Twisted Childhood universe and a sequel to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Like its predecessor, it was directed by Rhys Frake-Waterfield and is a horror parody of A.A. Mills and A.H. Shepard's Winnie the Pooh books. The film stars Scott Chambers as Christopher Robin and Ryan Oliver as the titular character, with Tallulah Evans, Teresa Banham, and Peter DeSoya Figuroni, and Alec Newman and Simon Calloway in supporting roles. It follows Pooh as he embarks on a murderous rampage through Christopher Robin's childhood town to seek revenge on him for revealing his existence to the world. So this film takes, I believe, a few months after the events of the first movie, and there's a different actor playing Christopher Robin in this. Like I say, that the actor who's playing Christopher Robin in this one is Scott Chambers, and the reason you've got a new actor in this role isn't because the first actor didn't want to return. It's because the event of the first movie is actually a movie within a movie. Like I say, this is a soft reboot of its own story. So after the events of the first movie, which became the massacre of 100 Acre Woods, Christopher Robin is basically become blacklisted within his own town because he told the police and the authorities of the events that transpired in the first movie, and no one believed him. No one believed him. No one wanted anything to do with him. And he's struggling, to deal with the PTSD that he had thanks to the events of the first movie. And then because of the story he's told, a filmmaker decided to take his story and turn it into an independent slasher movie, which is the first film that we've seen in the beginning. And so because that movie, which is the first movie, is a movie within a movie in this one, it creates this new beginning for these characters, and it allows the director and the writers to create a more compelling story. And that's exactly what they've done. And like I say, we've seen Winnie the Pooh's look. It just looked like a man in a Halloween costume and a Halloween face. In this particular movie, they've really upped the ante with the budget, and they've really put a lot of serious effort into making the character scary this time round. So this is Pooh in this film. As you can see, he looks more scary, he's more menacing, and the film basically starts out with these women in a camper van who are attacked by Owl, Piglet and Pooh in a really heinous and gory attack, and you really see how vicious these characters have now become, and their origin story is slightly being changed. So as you know, the previous film, which is a film within a film, told the story of how Christopher Robin decided to go to college, and in the 5 years he was away, these human monster hybrids or creature hybrids went wild and feral and turned murderous. In this particular movie, it turns out that Christopher Robin, he has got PTSD, not only because of the event of the previous film, also because when he was younger, his younger brother and a group of children were abducted, and after they were abducted, it had a real effect on him. And now he's grown up, he's trying to put his life together. He has a beautiful girlfriend who, he cares deeply for, but like I say, he's outcasted by his town and his community. And he really has to try and find a way to find a balance and to move forward with his life. But then, because he has told the world about the story of Pooh, Piglet, that happened previously, then now the world's looking for these creatures. And now Owl is enraged, Piglets and Pooh are enraged, and they decide to invade, basically, the town and slaughter people that Christopher Robin loves. And there's a particular character that wasn't featured in the first movie that makes a huge appearance in this one, and that is none other than Tigger. And when Tigger makes his presence felt, oh boy, does he not. He is vicious. He is pure carnage, pure feral, pure beast. And he does not miss a beat in the murder, especially near the end of the movie, where some of Christopher Robin and his girlfriend's friends are going to like an underground nightclub, and Tigger and Winnie the Pooh invade. First it's Pooh who makes his way through the building, but then Tigger makes his way to the dance floor, and when he makes his appearance felt, carnage erupts. And the great thing about this movie, because it is a soft reboot and it kind of explains the first movie and keeps it like within the confines of this movie, but with a film within a film, there's even a scene of Christopher Robin's friend, she's a babysitter, and she's babysitting a kid, and he's sitting watching the first movie on the television screen. So it's a film within a film, and because they did that, and because they've explained it that way, it's now opened this up to be able to create a more compelling story that can connect to the next lot of films within the Twisted Childhood universe. And the budget's bigger, the kills are bigger, there's some really good gore effects in this, the acting is way better in this, a bunch of acting talent that they brought in this is bigger, and you can clearly tell they have set designs, costume design, effect designs, look and feel. This is a much bigger and stronger movie than the previous one. which was very low budget, where this feels medium budget. It's still independent, but you can tell they spent the money well. But the best thing about this is the story, how it rewrites the first one, and then it creates something new and fresh. And just like the first movie, it had an animated prologue right at the beginning, which also explained about these human creature hybrids. And there's more flashback sequences in this one of a younger Pooh who befriended a younger Christopher Robin, and they kind of change up their backstory slightly. And like I say, Christopher Robin's younger brother and other children were adopted by an unknown individual who was then later revealed throughout the course of the film. So they've really attempted to change things up for the positives. I really enjoyed the action. I really enjoyed the kills. There's some amazing scenes in this cinematography, like this particular scene where Pooh's heading to, the household of where the young kid and the babysitter, who is Christopher Robin's friend, or he's busy watching the first Blood and Honey film on the television, and he decides to make his way there, brutally kills the mother, the father, and attempts to go after the babysitter, who was Christopher Robin's, I say friend, but I'm sure I'd like a new love interest. And the kid, and it's really well put together. So this one is a lot stronger than the first one. It's still independent, it's still low budget, but what I do appreciate is that the writer is trying to build a compelling world. We've had the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've had the DC Extended Universe, we've had the Monsterverse with Godzilla and Kong, we've got the Conjuring universe, but this is another shared universe, but with a twist, a dark twist. You're taking these childhood beloved characters like Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, Tigger, and you're turning them into these vicious killing machines, and it's scary, unique, and different, and I appreciate it. We've had Bambi the Reckoning. We've got Peter Pan, I think, Netherland Stories, I think it's called. I could be wrong with that title. And then you've got Pinocchio Unstringed, and then after that you're getting the Twisted Childhood Universe, Poohniverse Assemble, where they're going to feature a lot of these horror adaptation of the characters in one film, like Avengers. And then we're going to get Blood and Honey 3, and because of the popularity of Tigger, I do believe we're getting Tigger Returns, a solo film. So hopefully that'll explain why he wasn't featured in the first film, even though the first film is a film within a film in this film. And hopefully they're going to expand more on the backstory of how these creatures came to be. We do know that there's a scientist involved in some, creepy experiments with animal and human hybrid adaptations. So that all comes into play throughout this plot. But like I say, it's a bigger budget, slightly better cinematography, better set, better costuming, better makeup effects, better acting. Overall, a stronger and better film than the first one. And so because of that, I am going to rate this an 8 out of 10, because I thoroughly enjoyed it and I like the direction of where they're going, and it's just the beginning. But that's just my take on this movie. Where we're headed next, who knows, but it's going to be a fun ride to see how far they can take this. And it's nice to see independent cinema and independent movies get such a big push, and it's building a following, it's building a decent following. The Twisted Childhood universe is something that doesn't come along that often outside of the big studio films. So it's nice to see another film that isn't on that scale getting some attention and building towards something. And horror fans are enjoying it. Anyone who likes independent horror films are enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it. So that's just my take on the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey films for now. But tell me what you think of Blood and Honey. Tell me what you think of Winnie the Pooh. What do you think of these childhood characters getting the horror treatment? Let me know in the comments below. But keep on enjoying the movies. Keep on enjoying all things entertainment. And I'll catch you all at the next one.